The skies over Seoul turned dark as massive alien warships descended from the heavens. Their towering forms blotted out the sun, casting eerie shadows over the city. People looked up, fear creeping into their hearts as the sky filled with metallic behemoths, each one powerful enough to destroy entire nations. The Galactic Empire had arrived, and they had only one demand: surrender. A holographic transmission was broadcast across the world. The image of Supreme Commander Thalrex appeared, a tall, silver-skinned alien with piercing yellow eyes, his expression cold and arrogant. His voice echoed with authority, translated into every human language. People of Earth, you stand before the might of the Galactic Empire. We have conquered countless worlds. None have resisted us and survived. Surrender now, and you will be spared. He paused, waiting for the familiar reaction. Across the galaxy, when other species had received this message, they had begged for mercy. He expected Earth to do the same. Instead, the response was something he had never encountered before: laughter. At first, it started as a chuckle from a news anchor covering the event. Then, social media exploded. Memes spread like wildfire. One showed a picture of the alien fleet with the caption, "Finally, some new competition in Call of Duty." Another read, "We've beaten each other in 2 world wars. What makes you think we can't handle you?" In a South Korean military base, Captain Hojun watched the broadcast while sipping his coffee. He smirked and leaned back in his chair. They have no idea what they've just walked into. Beside him, Lieutenant Jae-won chuckled, shaking his head. They must think we're scared. This is going to be fun. But behind the humor, Earth's forces were already preparing. Hidden deep underground, advanced stealth ships were activated. AI-controlled combat drones, cloaking devices, and railgun platforms were brought online. Every nation's military quietly moved into position. The Galactic Empire mistook humanity's laughter for foolishness, but Earth was ready. The Empire saw the mockery as an insult. Furious, Thalrex ordered an immediate ground invasion. He sent a massive wave of shock troopers, towering war mechs, and armored carriers into major cities, believing that a direct show of force would break Earth's spirit. In Busan, civilians ran as alien soldiers marched through the streets. Their glowing weapons hummed as they aimed at terrified onlookers. An alien commander activated his communicator. "We have landed." No resistance detected. Then, everything went wrong. Hidden in the buildings, human soldiers were waiting. The moment the invaders passed, railgun snipers took their shots. Alien soldiers collapsed, their armor shattered by bullets moving at hypervelocity speeds. Drones swarmed the skies, dropping precision bombs onto enemy mechs. Guerrilla fighters emerged from underground tunnels, launching ambushes with EMP grenades that disabled enemy shields. Sergeant Du Yun led one of the attack squads. He moved swiftly, dodging plasma fire as he took down alien troops with deadly efficiency. His team fought with precision, exploiting weaknesses the Empire hadn't even considered. In less than an hour, the unstoppable invasion force was in full retreat. The humans had fought like ghosts, attacking from nowhere and disappearing before the Empire could react. Thalrex watched the battlefield reports in disbelief. "How?" he growled. No species had ever resisted the Empire this way. But he still had his fleet. He would crush Earth from orbit. The Empire's warships moved into position, ready to unleash devastating planetary bombardments. On board his flagship, Thalrex smirked. "This planet will burn," he muttered. But before he could give the order, his ship's sensors went haywire. Alarm klaxons blared. Red warning lights flashed across control panels. "Commander, we're under attack," an officer shouted. Thalrex's eyes widened. From where? Human stealth ships, equipped with cloaking technology, had slipped past the Empire's defenses. They struck hard and fast. Railgun platforms hidden on the moon fired devastating rounds that tore through enemy battleships. AI-controlled fighter drones weaved through the massive ships, targeting weak points and causing chain explosions. Captain He-jun led a squadron of human pilots, flying experimental fighters that outmaneuvered the Empire's defenses. He locked onto an enemy battleship and fired a barrage of missiles. The ship exploded in a bright fireball, debris scattering in all directions. Meanwhile, Earth's main fleet emerged from the shadow of Mars, launching a full-scale counteroffensive. Humanity was no longer just defending. They were taking the fight to the Empire. The Empire was in chaos. Their forces, built for intimidation and slow, overwhelming conquest, were crumbling against Earth's speed and strategy. Desperate to turn the tide, Falrex ordered his command base on the moon to activate a powerful orbital weapon, a planetary bombardment cannon that could wipe out entire cities in seconds. Lieutenant G1's team had already infiltrated the moon base. Moving in silence, they neutralized enemy guards and planted charges on key power generators. But then, alarms blared. The enemy knew they were there. A fierce battle erupted inside the base. Alien soldiers fired plasma bolts, but the human special forces fought back with brutal efficiency. Ji-1's squad suffered heavy losses. Sergeant Du-yun took a hit to the chest, falling to the ground. Blood pooled beneath him. Ji-1 grabbed his friend. "We have to move." Du-yun coughed, shaking his head. "No time. Finish the mission." Ji-1 clenched his jaw, then nodded. He placed Du-yun's weapon in his hand, giving him a final salute before leading the remaining soldiers deeper into the base. They reached the control room and planted the final charges. As they detonated, the entire moon base exploded in a fiery blast, taking the Empire's greatest weapon with it. The destruction of the moon base was the final blow. The Empire's fleet, now leaderless and in chaos, began to retreat. But humanity didn't let them go. Reinforcements from Mars and Jupiter's colonies arrived, cutting off the fleeing ships. Human ground forces pushed deep into the heart of the Empire's strongholds, liberating enslaved worlds. Inspired by Earth's defiance, countless alien species revolted against their oppressors. In a last desperate attempt, Falrex contacted Earth's leaders. His holographic form flickered in front of Captain He-jun and other world commanders. "We surrender," Falrex admitted, his voice trembling. "But we demand terms of peace." He-jun stared at him for a long moment, then simply smiled. "We don't kneel." With those words, the final battle began. Humanity's forces pushed forward, shattering the remnants of the Empire. The war was over. The Galactic Empire, once feared across the stars, was no more. Its armies were dismantled, its warlords overthrown. The galaxy had changed forever. But humanity didn't conquer. Instead, they extended a hand. They offered protection to the species once enslaved, helping them rebuild. Where the Empire had ruled with fear, Earth inspired hope. Back on Earth, Ji-1 stood at a memorial, looking at the names of those who had fallen. Sergeant Du-yun among them. He placed a hand on the stone, whispering, "We did it." Across the galaxy, the story of Earth's defiance spread. The species that had once mocked them as a primitive world now saw them as legends, and it all started with laughter. Humanity had won, and the universe would never be the same again. The Empire didn't wait long after humanity's laughter. They took it as an insult, and they wanted to crush it. The first strike came at dawn. The skies over Busan rippled with light as massive dropships descended, casting enormous shadows over the city. The ground trembled when they landed, and the sound of hydraulics hissed through the air as they unloaded their deadly cargo. Towering war mechs stepped forward, their metal feet smashing into the streets. Lines of armored shock troopers followed, their glowing weapons ready to fire. The Empire believed they would face panic and surrender. They expected humans to scatter in fear like so many other species before them. Instead, the streets were empty. The silence was their first mistake. As the first wave of soldiers advanced, the attack came without warning. From the upper floors of abandoned buildings, railgun snipers opened fire. The sharp crack of hypervelocity rounds echoed through the streets. Alien soldiers collapsed, their armor punched through like paper. The war mechs turned their massive heads, trying to locate the attackers, and that was when the drone strikes hit. Explosions erupted across the invasion force. Human combat drones, sleek and fast, swooped down like birds of prey, dropping precision bombs onto the enemy's ranks. The war mechs staggered, their systems fried by EMP blasts. Missiles roared from hidden launchers, tearing through the Empire's heavy armor. On the ground, Sergeant Du Yun led his team through the chaos. They moved like shadows, slipping from cover to cover. He raised his rifle and took down 2 aliens with quick, efficient shots. "Keep moving," he ordered. "We hit them hard and fast. No mercy." His squad spread out, launching their ambush with brutal precision. Grenades arced through the air, landing among the enemy with devastating results. The aliens tried to rally, but the humans fought dirty. They didn't give the enemy time to recover. On the Empire's flagship, Supreme Commander Thalrex watched the battle unfold, and for the first time in his long career, he felt fear. The invasion force he had believed unstoppable was being slaughtered. The humans were unlike any species he had ever faced. They didn't fight with desperation. They fought with skill, with strategy, and with terrifying efficiency. How? Thalrex's voice shook with rage. How are they doing this? But there was no answer. Only the sound of his forces dying. The Empire's forces tried to regroup, but humanity gave them no chance. The streets of Busan became a killing ground. Human railgun emplacements, hidden in the mountains surrounding the city, rained fire down on the enemy. Snipers picked off officers with chilling accuracy, and every time the Empire thought they had found cover, drone strikes drove them out. Sergeant Du Yun's squad pushed deeper into the enemy's lines. They moved through the ruins of the city, silent and deadly. Du Yun paused at the corner of a shattered building, raising a fist to halt his team. Ahead, a squad of alien soldiers stood near a damaged mech, trying to repair it. He smiled grimly. "Take them." The attack was over in seconds. The humans struck from multiple angles, cutting down the enemy before they could react. When the last alien fell, Du Yun surveyed the battlefield. Smoke rose from the wreckage of the Empire's forces. The invaders were in full retreat. "Busan is secure," Du Yun reported, his voice calm. "Send them a message. If they want to fight, we'll give them one." The Empire's fleet descended like a storm, filling the sky above Earth with the cold, metallic gleam of war. Thousands of massive ships moved into formation, sleek, heavily armed, and built for domination. Their weapons hummed with deadly energy, and their shields shimmered like ripples across the void. Supreme Commander Thalrex stood on the bridge of his flagship, a cruel smile twisting his face. "Let them laugh," he sneered. "Soon, their laughter will turn to screams." But as the Empire's ships advanced, the space around Earth remained eerily quiet. No defense fleet rose to meet them. No counterattack fired from the planet's surface. The silence stretched, and it made Thalrex uneasy. "Why aren't they fighting?" one of his officers asked. "They're cowards," Thalrex snapped. "They know their defeat is inevitable." But he was wrong. Without warning, the Empire's formation exploded into chaos. The first signs of attack were brief flashes of light, and then entire warships began to disappear. Massive explosions ripped through the fleet as invisible enemies struck with surgical precision. Ships vanished from sensors before they even knew they were under attack. "They're here," a panicked officer shouted. "We can't see them. We can't." The line went dead. Earth's cloaked vessels emerged from the void like phantoms. Sleek and silent, they wove through the Empire's massive ships, unleashing hell. Human stealth fighters darted like wasps, their railguns tearing through the Empire's heavy armor. Missiles streaked through the darkness, finding their targets with pinpoint accuracy. On the human command ship, Captain Hejun watched the battle unfold with calm focus. "They're big," he said, "but slow. Let's show them what speed looks like." He gave the order, and Earth's fleet moved as one. Cloaked ships danced through the Empire's lines, striking and vanishing before the enemy could retaliate. Eye-controlled drones swarmed like a metallic tide, overwhelming enemy defenses with sheer numbers and relentless precision. "Target their command ship," Hejun ordered. A squadron of drones broke off, moving with terrifying speed. The Empire's ships fired wildly, trying to hit the small, agile attackers, but they were too fast. The drones weaved through enemy fire, closing in on the massive flagship. Falrex's eyes widened as alarms blared across his bridge. "Shields up. Destroy those things." But it was already too late. The first wave of drones unleashed a barrage of high-explosive rounds. The flagship's shields flared, struggling to hold against the onslaught. Then the second wave struck, and the shields collapsed. "Direct hit," Hejun's weapons officer called out. "Good," Hejun said. "Let's finish this." Human railgun platforms, stationed in Earth's orbit, opened fire. The railguns fired with terrifying force, their rounds moving at speeds that turned them into unstoppable projectiles. The Empire's ships, built for slow, overwhelming conquest, had no defense against such speed and precision. The flagship shuddered as a railgun round punched through its hull. Fires spread across its surface, and explosions rocked its massive frame. On the bridge, Falrex clung to his command chair, his confidence shattered. How are they doing this?" he whispered. But no one had an answer. The Empire's fleet was in disarray. Ships collided as they tried to maneuver away from unseen attackers. Human stealth bombers slipped through the chaos, delivering payloads that tore the massive warships apart. The void filled with the debris of the once mighty armada. Amid the destruction, Hejun's voice remained steady. "Push them back. Don't let a single one of them escape." And humanity's forces obeyed. The Empire had come to intimidate Earth. They had come to crush a species they believed weak and foolish. But now, they were the ones running, their fleet broken and their pride shattered. As the last of the enemy ships attempted to flee, a final railgun round found its mark. The Empire's flagship erupted in a massive fireball, the light of its destruction visible even from Earth's surface. On the bridge of his command ship, Captain Hejun watched the explosion with a faint smile. "Let's see if they're still laughing." But the battle wasn't over yet. The Empire's forces were wounded, but they were not defeated. And humanity knew the fight had only just begun. The Empire's fleet was in ruins, their once mighty warships reduced to drifting wreckage. Fires still burned in the darkness of space, and the shattered remains of their command ship spun slowly toward the void. But humanity knew better than to celebrate too soon. The enemy wasn't defeated. Not yet. On Earth's military command network, urgent orders flew back and forth. Intelligence reports had confirmed the existence of the Empire's moon base on Ralvik, a fortified command center housing their planetary bombardment systems. If the Empire managed to activate those weapons, Earth wouldn't survive the next attack. In a dimly lit dropship, Lieutenant J1 adjusted her combat gear. The hum of the engines vibrated through the floor as the ship raced toward the moon. Around her, the rest of the strike team made their final checks. Their faces were grim, their eyes hard. They knew what was at stake. Sergeant Du Yun sat across from J1, tightening the straps on his body armor. "You think they're ready for us?" he asked with a crooked grin. "They'd better hope they are," J1 replied, "because we're not giving them a second chance." The dropship shuddered as it entered Ralvik's atmosphere. Outside the viewport, the moon's surface stretched out in an endless expanse of gray and black, broken only by the glowing lights of the Empire's base. Anti-air fire streaked upward, blazing through the darkness. But the dropship was fast, and Earth's cloaking tech kept them mostly invisible. 2 minutes to drop, the pilot called back. Jai-1 took a deep breath, steadying herself. The mission was simple: infiltrate the base, disable the planetary bombardment systems, and get out alive. But she knew it wouldn't be that easy. The dropship dove low, skimming just above the surface before the rear hatch opened. J1 led the team out, their boots hitting the moon's rocky ground in perfect formation. The squad moved fast, keeping low, their advanced armor blending into the shadows. They reached the perimeter fence in seconds. J1 signaled, and one of the tech specialists moved forward, planting a small device against the fence's power generator. A soft pulse of energy rippled outward, and the fence went dead. "Move in," J1 ordered. They slipped inside undetected, making their way toward the main command center. The base was massive, a sprawling network of fortified buildings and towering weapons platforms. Patrols moved along the walkways, but the human team avoided them with practiced ease. They reached the entrance to the control hub just as the first alarm sounded. "Looks like they found the dropship," Du-Yun muttered. "Then we move fast," Jai-1 said. The team breached the entrance, and the corridor exploded into chaos. Empire soldiers poured in from side passages, their weapons blazing. The humans fought back with brutal efficiency, moving as one. Railguns fired, and enemy bodies hit the ground. Jai-1 led the charge, her rifle cutting down enemies with deadly precision. Beside her, Du-Yun fought like a man possessed, his battle axe swinging through the air with terrifying force. But the Empire's forces were relentless. The team pushed forward, but the cost was high. One by one, soldiers fell, cut down by enemy fire or dragged away by explosions. As they neared the control room, Du-Yun took a hit. The impact knocked him off his feet, and Ji-1 was at his side in an instant. Blood spread across his armor, and his breathing was ragged. "Leave me," he gasped. "Finish the mission." "No," Ji-1 said through gritted teeth. "Don't waste this," Du-Yun whispered. "Go." Tears burned in her eyes, but she nodded. She squeezed his hand once, and then she was running, the remaining team following close behind. They reached the control room just as the bombardment systems began to power up. Lights flared across the console, and a low hum filled the air. Ji-1's heart pounded as she raised her weapon, cutting down the last of the enemy guards. "Shut it down," she ordered. The tech specialist moved fast, fingers flying across the console. Warnings flashed, and alarms blared. But slowly the systems began to power down. The humming faded, and the lights dimmed. "We did it," the tech whispered. But there was no time to celebrate. Ji-1 activated her comm. "Control, this is Strike Team. The base is secure. Bombardment systems are offline. Repeat, the weapons are down." "Copy that, Strike Team," Captain Hejun's voice replied. "Earth's counteroffensive is already underway. You've done good work." But Jai-1's eyes darkened as she looked around the ruined control room. "Not good enough," she whispered. As Earth's forces prepared to launch their final attack, the strike team gathered their wounded and prepared for extraction. The mission was a success, but the cost had been higher than anyone had expected. And the fight wasn't over yet. The once mighty Galactic Empire was crumbling. Their warships lay in ruins, their planetary bombardment systems were offline, and their elite soldiers had been decimated. The empire that had ruled through fear and overwhelming power for centuries now faced something they had never anticipated: humiliation, and it had come at the hands of the one species they had dismissed as weak and primitive: humanity. In the Imperial war chamber aboard the battered flagship Zalvokar, the atmosphere was one of panic. Officers shouted over one another, scrambling to make sense of the chaos. Reports poured in of human fleets advancing, of Imperial supply lines being cut off, of rebellions igniting on once subjugated worlds. The Empire's vast territory was unraveling, and their enemies had become emboldened by humanity's defiance. At the center of the storm stood Grand Marshal Vorik, his normally regal composure shattered. His scaled hands gripped the edge of the war table as he stared at the holographic map. Red symbols, Human forces were spreading like wildfire through Imperial space. Entire systems were slipping from his grasp. The Empire's military might was being torn apart by a species they had fought beneath notice. This cannot be happening, Vorik whispered, his voice trembling. They were supposed to fear us. They were supposed to surrender. And Ada approached cautiously, holding a datapad. Grand Marshal, the human forces are advancing on the Varnak system. If we lose Varnak, the entire southern sector will fall. Vorik's eyes flashed with desperation. He knew there was only one option left. Swallowing his pride, he activated the comm system and transmitted a message directly to Earth's High Command. The image of Vorik appeared on human screens across the planet. He stood tall, but his voice betrayed his fear. Humans, we propose a truce. Let us end this conflict before more lives are lost. The Galactic Empire seeks peace. The response was immediate, and it was not what Vorik expected. Across Earth and its colonies, the sound of laughter echoed. News channels played the broadcast on repeat, with commentators barely able to speak through their chuckles. Memes spread like wildfire, portraying the once feared Grand Marshal as a groveling coward. Social media exploded with hashtags like #ImperianItsKnees and #HumanityLoxLast. In the Earth Defense Command Center, Captain Hojun wiped tears of laughter from his eyes. They'd really thought we'd fall for this. After everything they've done. Lieutenant Ju-1, still bandaged from the brutal mission on Ralvik, grinned. I almost feel bad for them. Almost. A new transmission interrupted their laughter, this time from Earth's leadership. The message was simple and clear. There would be no truce. The Empire had started this war, but humanity would finish it. The counteroffensive began immediately. Human fleets, bolstered by advanced AI systems and stealth technology, surged into Imperial space. Cloaked strike ships bypassed enemy defenses, striking deep into the heart of the Empire. Railgun platforms and drone swarms dismantled Imperial fleets with ruthless efficiency. But it wasn't just humanity that rose against the Empire. Inspired by Earth's defiance, countless oppressed worlds seized their chance for freedom. Rebellions erupted on a dozen planets. Former Imperial colonies overthrew their governors and declared independence. The Empire's iron grip shattered as species long held in fear realized their oppressors were no longer invincible. On the planet Varnak, Imperial forces prepared to make a last stand. Human warships descended through the atmosphere, their sleek forms cutting through the sky like blades. The ground trembled as drop pods slammed into the surface, disgorging squads of heavily armed soldiers. Leading the charge was Sergeant Du-Yun, his injuries patched up and his determination burning brighter than ever. No mercy, he roared as his unit advanced. They didn't show us any. Let's return the favor. The battle was swift and brutal. Human forces, driven by vengeance and a thirst for justice, overwhelmed the remaining Imperial troops. Railguns barked, drones swarmed, and the Empire's banners fell. Within hours, Varnak was liberated, and the rebellion spread even further. On the Imperial capital world of Corvallis, fear gripped the palace. Grand Marshal Vorik watched helplessly as human fleets closed in, his once mighty empire reduced to ruins. The laughter of humanity still echoed in his ears, a cruel reminder of how far they had fallen. But humanity wasn't finished yet, and the Empire's final reckoning was fast approaching. The Empire was finished. Their once mighty warships now burned in orbit, broken and drifting like the wreckage of a forgotten nightmare. The skies above the Imperial capital of Corvallis were filled with fire as human fleets stood victorious. On the ground, the remains of the Empire's armies lay in ruins, shattered, scattered, and defeated. Grand Marshal Vorik knelt in the palace courtyard, his ornate armor battered and his face streaked with blood and dirt. Around him, human soldiers moved with quiet efficiency, securing the area and rounding up the last of the Imperial leadership. The fear in Vorik's eyes was unmistakable. The same fear he had once instilled in countless other species now consumed him. When Captain Hojum approached, there was no anger in his eyes, only calm determination. This could have ended differently, Hojum said quietly. You thought fear made you strong. You thought you could break us, but you never understood humanity. Vorik's voice cracked. What are you going to do with me? Hojum didn't answer immediately. Instead, he turned his gaze to the skies, where human ships maintained their silent vigil. We're not like you, he said finally. We don't conquer, we defend. And now, we rebuild. Later, in the chambers of the Galactic Council, a place where humanity had once been viewed as nothing more than an insignificant backwater species, Hojum stood before the assembled representatives. The room was filled with beings from across the galaxy, many of them still in shock at the Empire's fall. They had watched as humanity, the species they had mocked and underestimated, rose up and tore down the most feared power in the known universe. But Hojum's words were not those of a conqueror. We didn't fight this war for power, he said, his voice steady and clear. We fought for freedom, for ourselves, and for every species that suffered under the Empire's rule. We offer no demands, no empire of our own. Instead, we offer cooperation, a chance to rebuild, a chance for peace. The chamber erupted in murmurs, disbelief, hope, uncertainty. But slowly, one by one, the representatives began to rise in applause. Humanity's defiance had become legend, but their mercy would shape the future. On Earth, the celebrations were unlike anything the planet had ever seen. Cities lit up with fireworks, people danced in the streets, and the air was filled with laughter, the same laughter that had once answered the Empire's threats. But not everyone celebrated. In a quiet military cemetery on the outskirts of Seoul, Lieutenant Jae-won stood before a simple grave. The stone was clean and well kept, the name carved into it a stark reminder of the cost of their victory. Sergeant Du-yun. Jae-won knelt, placing a small bouquet of flowers at the base of the headstone. You always said humanity would never back down, she whispered. You were right. We stood, we fought, and we won. The wind stirred the leaves around her, and for a moment, Jae-won could almost hear his voice, laughing, fearless and defiant. She smiled through her tears. Your sacrifice wasn't in vain. The galaxy's free now, because of you. As the sun set over the peaceful graveyard, the laughter of humanity echoed across the stars, a sound of hope, of courage, and of a future finally free from fear.